We begin here. President Cyril Ramaphosa finally announced his much-anticipated reshuffle of his cabinet. The president appointed Paul Mashatile as his deputy president. Ramaphosa announced the new members of the National Executive at the Union Buildings in Pretoria yesterday. Khumbudzo Ntshavheni is now the minister in the presidency, while Dr Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma is moved from Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs to the minister in the presidency responsible for women, youth and persons with disabilities. Marubeni Ramaphosa is the presidency responsible for planning, monitoring and evaluation. Dr Nkosazana Ramaphosa is the country's new presidency responsible for electricity. Ramaphosa announced the changes to his cabinet following several delays as a reshuffle was expected since Ramaphosa was re-elected president of the ANC in December. He sought to explain the reasons for the delays, saying a number of processes needed to be followed first, some of which relate to the requirements of the Constitution with regards to the appointment of members of the National Executive. All right, now let's discuss this. We're now joined via Zoom by political analyst, Professor André Duvenhage. Prof, thank you so much for your time this afternoon. Now, the cabinet reshuffle has underwhelmed many, and some described it as nothing but a window dressing. What do you make of, the reshuffle? Any surprises and on who survived this chop? Let's start there.
Unati, yes, good afternoon. Indeed, interesting selection and changes made by the president, but I think the majority of people had expected a lot more, and the majority of people would have liked to see changes in terms of portfolios like internal affairs, foreign affairs, the energy portfolio, state security, some other people in the portfolio of public works, and so on. But generally speaking, it was a shifting around of positions and no real changes. The big fundamental change, however, was that of deputy president. And we know already since the national conference that there's a bit of tension between the deputy president of the ANC and the president of the country. And I think that was one of the factors that delayed the announcement of the cabinet.
That would make sense. And Prof, just your expansion on the statement that says that the perjury and the fraud case opened against the ANC deputy president, now the country's deputy president, Paul Mashatile, for misleading the Northwest High Court. How do you think that will reflect, on his character and his position?
Yes, I have in person read that specific case. And I think it's going to reflect very negatively on the image of the deputy president. Basically, what they are saying is that the conference, on basis of which the interim provincial committee had the right to organize the provincial conference of the Northwest, was a non-existing meeting, and there was no legitimacy and decision-making coming from the NEC with regard to the management of the provincial conference. In that sense, the deputy president was misleading the country and misleading the courts in this regard. And this may reflect negatively on him at this point in time.
And I want to talk then about just some of the things that will impact the ANC in particular going into the elections next year. I mean, in 2019, for one, if you look at what government committed to, and that's of reducing ministries, yet now we have added ministries in this recent, reshuffle, thereby essentially bloating the cabinet. I mean, does this affirm just how out of touch government is in this instance in terms of what South Africans are yearning for and what they need? And I want us to reflect on this in as far as how it will impact and affect come 2024?
Unati, your assessment is quite right. I think, however, that the president's strategy was to be as representative as possible. And when I talk about representation, I'm talking about geography, for example, accommodating KZN, accommodating other provinces like the Eastern Cape. There was a lot of women added to this process and a number of people in strategic positions. The interesting fact is there was also no action against, for example, his close ally, Gwedi Mantashe, who was seriously implicated by the whole Eskom episode and the claims made by André Duvenhage. So I think in a way he tried to hold together the center of the broad church of the ANC, and his specific aim was not to create differences, but to bring people together with the purpose of getting a stronger support base during the 2024 elections. At this point in time, some of the surveys are indicating that the ANC support may be even below 40, but it's quite interesting that the support base of Mr. Ramaphosa is higher than that of the ANC.
Let's talk now about another dynamic, Prof. You know, the introduction of electricity ministry. Of course, now we know Dr. Nkosazana Ramaphosa will now have to deal with the two other ministers who've been essentially dealing or not dealing with Eskom, and that of course is Gwedi Mantashe and Pravin Gordhan. Just your thoughts around this highly anticipated announcement, firstly, of who the new minister is going to be. Now that that has come out, what are your thoughts on his credentials, and also just on how you think he would be tackling this?
Unati, there's already serious concerns about Dr. Ramaphosa, specifically the role he played as mayor of Tshwane and his role in that whole electricity episode in Tshwane, which was very, very controversial. But on another level, there are also concerns. At the moment, we have a Minister of Public Works, we have a Minister of Energy, we have a Minister of Electricity, and we have a Deputy President heading a war room to look after Eskom and also the Chief in charge of all the parastatals. And my take on it is, it's a bit of an overkill. I think there are too many people responsible for the job. At this point in time, we need clear lines, we need strong action, we need to take it to the ground. And I think there are too many politicians and decision makers involved in the process.
And I mean, if you were listening to what executives at Eskom have been saying, particularly the former CEO, is that there was already so much bureaucracy around, just getting work done. So, the question is, with these three ministers essentially, and as you've said, the deputy president, will we actually see change and fast? But Prof, you mentioned the controversy around Tshwane, and of course, we just received news today, this morning, that Tshwane again is without a mayor because the recently elected COPE councillor Dr. Murunwa Makorela has been disqualified, and this talks to his insolvency in 2016. Your comments, your thoughts around this?
Well, yes, Tshwane is in the news for all the wrong reasons. I must say that election was a bit controversial. A number of things also happened today. I think a number of politicians didn't vote according to plan, and lie detectors was used on some people, and the result was that the EFF disrupted the interrogations that went on there today. So it's controversial. It will be interesting to see what is going on. But what we need in Tshwane at this point in time is strong leadership, is people who can bring this metro together, direct it, and define its future in terms of strong and decisive leadership. And unfortunately, this is absent at the moment.
Prof, I appreciate your time. Thank you so much for coming on to the show. That was Professor André Duvenhage, and of course, political analyst, just weighing in on yesterday's cabinet reshuffle.